The wine glass caught the restaurant's amber lighting as Kira raised it high above our table. Her Princeton ring glinted, the one she wore specifically to work dinners like this. 23 people from her HR consulting firm surrounded us, all watching with those polite smiles that meant they were about to witness something uncomfortable. "To my husband Rowan," she announced, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she wanted everyone to know she was the educated one in our marriage. "Without my degree, he'd be nobody." The laughter rippled around the table like a stone thrown into still water. Her boss chuckled. Her assistant covered her mouth with her napkin. Even Derek Vaughn, the business partner she'd been mentioning more and more lately, grinned from across the table where he sat with his perfectly pressed shirt and his perfectly capped teeth. I didn't defend myself. I didn't crack a joke to deflect. I didn't even smile. I reached into my wallet, pulled out 3 20s, and placed them next to my untouched salmon. The conversation died as I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor of this overpriced steakhouse where appetizers cost more than I charged for an hour of IT consulting. "Rowan?" Kira's voice had that warning edge, the one that usually made me sit back down and play along with whatever game she was running. Not tonight. I walked past the table of her colleagues, past the hostess station, past the valet stand, and out into the October air. Behind me I could hear Kira's laugh, too loud, too forced, as she probably told everyone I was having one of my moods. The thing about being underestimated is that people stop paying attention to what you're actually capable of. They see a guy who fixes computers and installs networks, and they assume that's all there is. They don't notice that the same skills that let me troubleshoot their systems also let me understand exactly how their entire digital life is connected. I drove home to our townhouse in Millbrook Heights, the one with the smart locks and the integrated home system that I'd installed and configured. The one where every device, every account, every subscription ran through networks and credit cards that Kira had never bothered to understand. She'd always been too busy being educated to pay attention to the details. I parked in our driveway and sat for a moment, looking at the house we'd shared for 3 years. The motion sensor lights flickered on, recognizing my car's approach. Even our porch light knew who was really in charge of keeping things running. Inside, I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd created when we first moved in together. Kira had laughed at my obsession with tracking every shared expense, every account, every service. "You're so paranoid," she'd said. "It's like you think I'm going to disappear one day." Turns out, I was just being practical. The phone plan, Carrick Communications LLC, established when I started freelancing. Kira's number was an additional line on my business account. I logged into the carrier's website and removed her line. Confirmation email saved. Car insurance. Millbrook Mutual. Policyholder Rowan Carrick. Kira's BMW was listed as an additional vehicle. I called the 24-hour line and removed her car from coverage. The automated system was happy to help, especially since I could provide all the account verification details. Gym membership at FitZone Premium, my credit card, family plan. I switched it to individual coverage. The change would take effect at midnight. Cloud storage for her work files, my Google Workspace account that I'd set up because she couldn't figure out the business pricing. I downloaded my own files, then removed her access entirely. Her work laptop would lose sync capability by morning. The meal delivery service, my card. Cancelled. Streaming services, my accounts. Access revoked. The smart home system, my configuration. I removed her phone from the authorized devices list and changed all the access codes. One by one, I methodically dismantled the digital infrastructure that kept Kira's life running smoothly. Every subscription, every service, every convenience that she'd grown accustomed to, all of it connected to accounts and credit cards that she'd never bothered to set up herself. Why would she? She had a degree. I was just the guy who handled the technical stuff. By 3 a.m, I'd saved 47 confirmation emails in a folder labeled Independence Day. Kira still wasn't home from her work dinner, which wasn't particularly surprising. These events often ran late, especially when Derek Vaughn was involved. I closed my laptop and went to bed, setting my phone to silent. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. My alarm went off at 6:30, same as always. I showered, made coffee, and checked my email while eating cereal. 17 missed calls from Kira's number, all after 2 in the morning. The calls had stopped around 4:15, probably when her phone finally ran out of battery and she realized the charger in her car wouldn't work anymore. At 7:45, she came through the front door looking like she'd slept in her car. Her makeup was smeared, her dress wrinkled, and her hair hung in limp strands around her face. She was carrying her phone and her car key, both equally useless to her now. "What did you do?" she demanded, waving her phone at me like evidence in a courtroom. I looked up from my laptop, where I was reviewing a client's network security audit. "Good morning to you too. How was the rest of dinner?" "My phone doesn't work. My car won't start. The hotel wouldn't take my card for a room." She threw her purse onto the kitchen counter, sending her Princeton keychain skittering across the granite. "What did you do, Rowan?" "I didn't do anything to your phone or your car," I said, which was technically true. I'd done something to my accounts that happened to affect her access to services. "Maybe you should call technical support." "I can't call anyone. My phone has no signal." I shrugged and returned to my laptop. "That's frustrating. You should probably figure out what's wrong with it." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to process this version of me. The one who wasn't immediately jumping up to fix her problems. The one who wasn't apologizing for walking out on her little performance last night. "I need to get to work," she said finally. "My presentation to the Morrison Group is at 10. "Better hurry then. Traffic's probably getting heavy." "My car won't start, Rowan. It just sits there when I turn the key." I looked up with my most helpful expression. "Did you check if your insurance is current? Sometimes they can remotely disable vehicles if there's a lapse in coverage." Her face went pale. "You wouldn't." "I wouldn't what?" "I'm just suggesting you call your insurance company to check your policy status." I glanced at my watch. "Although you might want to figure out the phone situation first." She grabbed her laptop bag and stormed toward the door, then stopped when she realized she had no way to get anywhere. I watched her internal struggle play out across her face, pride warring with desperation. "Can you drive me to work?" she asked through gritted teeth. "Sorry, I've got a client call in 20 minutes. Maybe try a rideshare app?" She pulled out her phone, then remembered it was useless. "Can I borrow your phone?" "I need it for work, but there's a payphone at the gas station on Elm Street, about a mile walk." The look she gave me could have melted steel. "This is ridiculous. Whatever you're angry about, we can talk about it like adults." "I'm not angry," I said, closing my laptop and standing up. "You were right last night. You're educated and independent. I'm sure you'll figure something out." I grabbed my keys and headed for the garage, leaving her standing in our kitchen with her useless phone and her useless car key. Through the rearview mirror, I watched her try the front door, probably just realizing that the smart lock no longer recognized her phone's proximity sensor. She'd have to use her physical key like some kind of primitive. My first client meeting was at Dataflow Solutions downtown, a routine security consultation that gave me plenty of time to think about phase 2 of my independence project. Kira would spend the morning dealing with the immediate crises, getting to work, figuring out why her phone didn't work, wondering why her insurance had lapsed, but the real fun would start when she tried to access her files. Around 11, I got a call from an unknown number. "Carrick IT Solutions," I answered professionally. "Rowan, thank God, it's me." Kira's voice was tight with stress. She was probably calling from her office landline, something she hadn't used in years. "Hi there. How's your morning going?" "My laptop can't sync to the cloud. All my client files are showing as unavailable. The Morrison presentation is in an hour and I can't access any of my research." "That sounds like a technical issue. Have you tried turning it off and on again?" "This isn't funny, Rowan. I need those files." I'm sure you do. Did you check with your IT department? Maybe there's a server outage. We don't have an IT department. You set up all our cloud storage, remember? You're our IT department. I made a thoughtful humming sound. Right, I remember now. I sent an email to your company yesterday letting them know I wouldn't be available for consulting or technical support anymore. Didn't you get it? The silence stretched for 10 seconds. What email? She finally whispered. Check your inbox. I sent it to your boss and copied the whole team. Professional courtesy, you know? I explained that I'd be focusing on other clients going forward. You can't just, we have contracts. Actually, we don't. I've always worked for your company as a favor to you, not as a formal arrangement. No contracts, no service agreements, no obligations. I paused. I'm sure someone with your education can find a new IT consultant pretty quickly. The line went quiet, except for the sound of her breathing. I need those files, Rowan. I'm sure you do. Good luck with the presentation. I hung up and immediately blocked the office number. Then I called my friend Mick Patterson, who'd been a detective before starting his own private investigation business. Mick, it's Rowan. You free for lunch today? I've got a situation that might need your particular expertise. Mick Patterson looked exactly like what Central Casting would order for an ex-cop turned private investigator. Thick, gray mustache, coffee-stained tie, and eyes that noticed everything. We met at Murphy's Diner on the south side of town, the kind of place that served actual food instead of deconstructed artisanal whatever. So, he said, cutting into his meatloaf, your wife publicly humiliated you at a work dinner and now you're systematically dismantling her digital life. How's that working out for you? It's not dismantling, I corrected. It's independence. She's always been very clear that she doesn't need me, so I'm just making that official. Mick grinned. Right, independence? And you called me because you want to be extra independent? I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshot I'd taken of Kira's calendar last night before I'd revoked my access to her cloud storage. Derek Vaughn, business partner. Notice anything interesting about their meeting schedule? He studied the screen, his cop instincts kicking in. Lot of late-night strategy sessions, lot of out-of-town conferences. He looked up. You think she's cheating? I think she's been very clear about not needing me. I'd like to know exactly how independent she's been. And if she is cheating? Then I'd like documentation for the divorce proceedings. Mick leaned back in his booth. Divorce, huh? You sure you want to go down that road? Could get expensive. Depends on what we find. Adultery affects asset division in this state. Plus, I've been very careful about keeping my business assets separate from our joint accounts. I smiled. Turns out being paranoid about finances has its advantages. All right, I'm interested. What do you need? Surveillance. Derek Vaughn drives a silver Lexus, license plate. I checked my notes. VGH 4429. Lives in the Riverside Towers downtown, Unit 1247. I need to know when he's meeting with my wife, where they're going, and what they're doing. Standard adultery investigation. My day rate is 400 plus expenses. Done. I slid an envelope across the table. That's 2,000. Should cover the first week. Mick pocketed the envelope without counting it. When do you want me to start? Tonight. Kira told me she's working late on a new client proposal. I'd be curious to know where she's really working. And what are you going to be doing while I'm following your wife around? I finished my coffee and stood up. Learning more about Derek Vaughn's business practices. Amazing what you can find in public records when you know where to look. That afternoon, I drove to the county courthouse and spent 3 hours in the records department. Derek Vaughn had been busy over the past 2 years. Business licenses, property transfers, partnership agreements. Most of it looked legitimate, but there were some interesting patterns. Vaughn Consulting LLC had been formed 18 months ago, right around the time Kira started mentioning Derek in conversation. The business address was a virtual office downtown, the kind that provided a mailing address and phone service but no actual workspace. More interesting were the bank records I could access through the business license filings. Vaughn Consulting had received several large payments from companies that I recognized as Kira's clients. Payments that seemed oddly timed with her business trips to other cities. I made copies of everything and drove home to wait for Mick's first report. Kira's car was in the driveway when I got home, which surprised me until I remembered that she'd probably spent most of the day dealing with insurance companies and phone carriers. The car was there, but that didn't mean it was functional. Inside, I found her sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop, surrounded by printed emails and handwritten notes. She looked up when I walked in, and I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "How was the Morrison presentation?" I asked. I had to reschedule, couldn't access my files. Her voice was flat, defeated. I spent 6 hours on the phone trying to get my services restored. Do you want to explain why every account I use is suddenly unavailable? Did you figure out the problem? The problem is that apparently every single service I use is connected to accounts that you control. Accounts that you've systematically canceled or suspended. I opened the refrigerator and grabbed a beer. That seems like poor planning on your part. What if something had happened to me? You'd be completely helpless. Something did happen to you. You lost your mind. Actually, I found some clarity. You were right last night. You don't need me. So I'm making sure you have the opportunity to prove that. She gestured at the papers scattered across the table. I've been trying to set up new accounts all day. Do you know how long it takes to establish new phone service? New insurance? New everything? I imagine it's quite a learning experience. The phone company wants a deposit because I don't have established credit in my own name. The insurance company wants to inspect my car before they'll write a policy. The cloud storage service wants business references. She laughed bitterly. Turns out I don't exist in the system without you. Sounds like you need to build some independence. This is insane, Rowan. We're married. Couples share accounts and services. It's normal. Is it normal for couples to publicly humiliate each other at work dinners? She was quiet for a long moment. I was just joking around. Everyone knows you're successful. Do they? Because it sounded like you were explaining to your colleagues why you settled for someone beneath your social class. That's not... She stopped herself, probably realizing that's exactly what it had sounded like. Look, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. Can we please just fix this and move on? There's nothing to fix. You're getting exactly what you said you wanted. A chance to succeed based on your own credentials and abilities. My phone buzzed with a text from Mick. Target acquired. Riverside Towers parking garage. Subject appears to be waiting for someone. I finished my beer and headed toward the stairs. I'm going to work in my office for a while. Good luck with the Independence Project. Rowan, wait. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs but didn't turn around. I need my files back, the ones from the shared cloud storage. I have client obligations. Those weren't your files. Those were files stored on my business account that I was sharing with you as a courtesy. Now that our professional relationship has ended, I can't provide access anymore. Legal liability issues. Legal liability? We're married. Are we? Because last night it sounded like you were pretty clear about the nature of our relationship. You have the degree, I'm just the help. I went upstairs and closed my office door, leaving her alone with her paperwork and her problems. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It's Mick. Your wife just arrived at Riverside Towers. She's heading up to the building. How does she look? Like a woman who's not going to a business meeting. She changed clothes in her car, from business attire to something more casual, and she brought an overnight bag. I looked out my office window at our driveway. Kira's car was gone. Get photos, I said, and find out how long she stays. Mick's report arrived by email at 11:30 that night, complete with time-stamped photographs. Kira entering Derek Vaughn's building at 7:45 p.m., the two of them leaving together at 8:30, heading to Romano's Italian restaurant downtown. More photos of them at dinner, sitting close, holding hands across the table, Derek feeding her a bite of his dessert. The final photo showed them returning to his building at 10:15 p.m. Kira's car was still in the parking garage as of 11 p.m. when Mick had called it a night. I printed the photos and added them to a folder I'd started labeled Documentation. Then I opened my laptop and began researching Derek Vaughn's background more thoroughly. Derek Michael Vaughn, age 42, divorced 3 years ago. His ex-wife had cited adultery in the divorce filing, which was a matter of public record. Apparently, Derek had a pattern of mixing business with pleasure. More interesting was his business history. Vaughn Consulting specialized in strategic partnerships and market development, which seemed to be fancy terms for connecting companies with potential clients. The kind of work that involved a lot of relationship building and entertainment expenses. I cross-referenced his client list with Kira's work calendar and found 12 instances over the past 8 months where they'd traveled to the same cities on the same dates. All business trips, according to Kira's explanations. All coincidences, I'm sure. At 6 a.m, I heard Kira's car in the driveway. I stayed in my office and listened to her trying to open the front door, probably confused about why her phone's proximity unlock wasn't working. After a few minutes, I heard the mechanical click of her physical key in the lock. She moved quietly through the house, probably hoping to avoid a confrontation. I heard the shower running, then the sound of her getting ready for work. At 7:30, her car started in the driveway. Apparently, she'd managed to get her insurance situation sorted out. I waited until 8 o'clock, then called Kira's office. Morrison and Associates, this is Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. This is Rowan Carrick. I'm trying to reach my wife, Kira, but her cell phone seems to be having issues. Oh, hi, Mr. Carrick. Actually, Kira called in sick today. She said she was coming down with something and needed to rest. Interesting. Did she say when she might be back in the office? She thought maybe tomorrow, but she wasn't sure. Should I have her call you when I hear from her? That's okay. I'll catch up with her at home. Thanks, Jennifer. I hung up and immediately called Mick. She called in sick but left the house dressed for work, I told him. Want to guess where she's really going today? Same place as last night? That'd be my assumption. Can you pick up surveillance again? Already on it. I'm parked outside your neighborhood. Silver BMW, license plate KRK 2847. That's her. She just turned toward downtown. I'll call you with an update in a couple hours. While Mick followed my wife around town, I drove to the offices of Morrison and Associates. Kira's company occupied the 3rd floor of a glass office building in the business district, the kind of place that looked impressive but probably cost more in rent than they made in profit. I'd been there dozens of times over the past 3 years, usually to fix someone's computer or set up new network equipment. The receptionist, Jennifer, knew me well enough to wave me past the front desk. Is Tom Morrison available? I asked. I wanted to discuss the IT consulting contract. Tom Morrison was Kira's boss, a man in his 50s who'd built his HR consulting business from nothing and still acted like every expense might bankrupt him. His office was cluttered with client files and coffee cups, the workspace of someone who did his own accounting. Rowan, good to see you. Jennifer mentioned Kira's under the weather today. Yeah, she's pretty wiped out. Actually, that's kind of why I'm here. I wanted to talk about transitioning the IT support to a different provider. His eyebrows went up. Problems with the current arrangement? Not problems exactly, but I'm expanding my business and taking on some bigger clients. I won't have time for the smaller accounts anymore. I handed him a business card for a legitimate IT company I'd worked with before. These guys are good, and they'll probably be cheaper than what you're paying me. What are we paying you? Tom asked, looking confused. Well, that's the thing. Kira and I never formalized the billing arrangement. I've basically been providing free support as a favor to her. But if I'm stepping back, you'll need a proper service contract with someone. Tom's expression shifted as he realized what I was telling him. You've been working for free? For 3 years? Like I said, it was a favor, but favors don't scale well when you're trying to grow a business. How much should we have been paying for IT support? I quoted him a number that made his face go pale. That's what you'd pay for equivalent service from any legitimate provider. You've been getting a pretty good deal. Tom was quiet for a moment, probably calculating 3 years of free IT support and realizing how much money Kira had been saving the company. Money that had probably contributed to her performance bonuses and salary increases. Does Kira know you're making this change? We discussed it. She understands that I need to focus on paying clients. It wasn't technically a lie. We had discussed my business priorities, just not in the context he was imagining. Well, Tom said finally, I appreciate everything you've done for us, and I understand about business growth. When would this transition happen? Immediately. I've already removed your company's access to my support systems. You'll need to contact the new provider to set up service. Tom's phone rang before he could respond. He glanced at the caller ID and frowned. Sorry, I need to take this. It's our biggest client. I left him to his call and walked back through the office, nodding goodbye to Jennifer. On my way out, I noticed several employees clustered around someone's computer, probably dealing with technical issues that they'd normally call me to fix. My phone rang as I reached the parking garage. She's at Vaughn's building again, Mick reported. Been there for 2 hours. Want me to stick around? How long can you stay? Long as you're paying me. Stay with it. I want to know her whole routine. I drove home and spent the afternoon organizing my documentation. Photos from Mick, business records from the courthouse, email confirmations from all the canceled services, everything neatly categorized and labeled. Around 4 o'clock, I got a call from an unknown number. Rowan, it's Derek Vaughn. That was unexpected. Derek, what can I do for you? I think we need to talk. About Kira. What about her? Look, I know this is awkward, but she's been having a rough time lately. Problems with her phone, her car, work issues. She thinks you might be upset about something. I'm not upset about anything. Why would you think that? She mentioned that you walked out of dinner the other night, and now she's having all these technical problems with her accounts and services. I let the silence stretch for a few seconds. Derek, I appreciate your concern for my wife's well-being, but I'm not sure why her technical problems would be any of your business. We work together. When she's stressed about personal issues, it affects our projects. Right. Your work projects, the ones that require so much after-hours collaboration. Another pause. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing at all. I'm sure your business relationship is completely professional. Look, Rowan, if there's some kind of problem between you and Kira, maybe you should work it out directly instead of playing games with her phone service. Games? Derek, I think you might be confused about something. I haven't done anything to Kira's phone service. If she's having technical difficulties, she should contact her service provider. Come on, man. We both know what's happening here. Do we? Why don't you explain it to me? Derek's voice got harder. You're sabotaging her accounts because you're jealous of her success. It's petty, and it's hurting her career. Her career. Right. I laughed. Derek, let me ask you something. In all your professional collaboration with my wife, has she ever mentioned who set up her cloud storage, her business email, her client database? What does that have to do with anything? Just curious about how much you know about her technical capabilities, since you're so concerned about her career. I don't have time for this. Just fix whatever you broke and leave her alone. I haven't broken anything. But here's some free advice. If Kira's having trouble with her technology services, maybe she should learn how to manage her own accounts. You know, like an independent professional. I hung up before he could respond. Interesting that Derek felt comfortable calling me directly about my wife's problems. Almost like he felt some kind of responsibility for her well-being. The kind of responsibility that might come from a relationship that was more than professional. My phone buzzed with a text from Mick. They're on the move, heading toward the Marriott downtown. I smiled and added Derek's phone call to my notes. The documentation folder was getting thick. Mick's surveillance report from the Marriott was thorough and damning. Photos of Kira and Derek checking in together. Photos of them in the hotel bar, clearly comfortable with each other in a way that had nothing to do with business. A photo of Derek's hand on Kira's back as they walked toward the elevators. The final photo showed them leaving the hotel together at 10 in the morning, after Kira should have been at work recovering from her mysterious illness. I printed everything and added it to my documentation folder, which now contained enough evidence to support adultery claims in any divorce proceeding. But I wasn't quite ready for lawyers and court filings. First, I wanted to have a conversation with my wife. Kira came home that evening looking refreshed and relaxed, which was remarkable for someone who'd supposedly spent the day sick in bed. She found me in the kitchen making dinner. Pasta with marinara sauce, nothing fancy. "Feeling better?" I asked, without looking up from the stove. "A little. I think I just needed rest." How was your day off?" "Quiet. I mostly slept." She sat down at the kitchen table and watched me cook. "Rowan, we need to talk about this situation with the accounts and services." "What situation?" "You know what situation. My phone, the insurance, the cloud storage. This has gone far enough." I turned around and leaned against the counter. "Has it? Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you're adapting pretty well. You managed to get your car running, you figured out how to call in sick to work, you even found ways to stay busy during your recovery day." Something flickered in her eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. I'm just impressed by your resourcefulness." "Look, I know you're angry about the dinner comment. I've apologized for that. But this passive-aggressive punishment has to stop." "Punishment?" "Kira, I'm not punishing you. I'm just not providing free services anymore." "Free services? I'm your wife." "Are you? Because lately it feels more like I'm your unpaid IT department." She stood up and started pacing around the kitchen. "This is ridiculous. Married couples share resources. That's how marriage works." "You're absolutely right. They share resources. They also share honesty, respect, and fidelity." She stopped pacing. "What's that supposed to mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed her one of Mick's photos. Her and Derek holding hands at Romano's restaurant. "It means I know about Derek." The color drained from her face. We were just having dinner. A business dinner." "Really? What kind of business requires holding hands across the table?" "You had me followed?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I had my concerns confirmed. There's a difference." She sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs. "How long have you known?" I suspected for a while. The late meetings, the out-of-town trips, the way you talked about him. But I've had confirmation for about a week now." "A week? You've known for a week and you didn't say anything?" What was I supposed to say? "Hey, honey, are you cheating on me with your business partner?" You would have denied it, then been more careful about covering your tracks. She put her head in her hands. "This is such a mess." "Yes, it is. The question now is what we're going to do about it." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Derek and I, we connected. We understand each other. I'm sure you do. Shared educational background and all that. Don't be sarcastic. This is hard enough." "Hard for who? You've been living a double life for months. I'm the one who's been played for a fool." "You're not a fool, Rowan. You're a good man. That's what makes this so complicated." "Complicated how?" She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "Derek wants me to leave you. He's getting divorced and he wants us to be together officially." "And what do you want?" "I don't know. I'm confused." I turned off the stove and moved the pasta to a cool burner. Suddenly, I wasn't hungry anymore. "Let me help you think through this," I said. "Derek's getting divorced because he cheated on his wife, just like he's helping you cheat on me. He's a consultant with no fixed address who seems to specialize in relationship building. And he's encouraging you to blow up your marriage for him. It's not that simple. Isn't it? Kira, what do you actually know about Derek's business, his finances, his long-term plans? We're partners. We're building something together. What are you building? Because from what I can see, he's a middleman who connects your clients with services and takes a cut. What happens when your clients realize they don't need the middleman? She was quiet for a long moment. You don't understand our business model. I understand that your business model depends on clients who trust you. What happens when they find out you've been lying to your husband for months? How does that affect their confidence in your integrity? You wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Tell the truth about what's been happening? You wouldn't sabotage my career out of spite. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sabotage your career? Kira, I've been supporting your career for 3 years. Free IT services, free technical support, free consulting advice. I've saved your company thousands of dollars, which made you look like a valuable employee who had great vendor relationships. That was your choice. It was. And now I'm making a different choice. She stood up again and started pacing. What do you want from me, Rowan? You want me to end things with Derek? Pretend this never happened? I want you to make a choice, Derek or me. But understand that if you choose Derek, you're choosing to give up everything that comes with being married to me. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. If we get divorced, you'll need to establish your own credit, your own accounts, your own professional relationships. You'll need to find a new place to live, since this house is in my name. You'll need to build a life that doesn't depend on my resources or my connections. I can do that. I have a degree. I have a career. Do you? Because your career has been built on free services that I provided and client relationships that I helped you maintain. Take away my support, and what exactly do you have left? She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to calculate what independence would actually cost her. This is blackmail, she said finally. No, it's a choice. Stay married and work on rebuilding trust, or get divorced and build an independent life with Derek. But you can't have both. My phone rang. Derek Vaughn's number. Answer it, I said, holding out the phone. Let's see how committed he is to supporting your independence. She stared at the ringing phone but didn't take it. No? Okay, I'll answer it. I swiped to accept the call and put it on speaker. Hello, Derek. Rowan, we need to talk. This harassment of Kira has to stop. Harassment? Derek, I'm having a conversation with my wife in my own kitchen. How is that harassment? You know what I'm talking about. The canceled accounts, the surveillance, the threats to her career. I looked at Kira, who had gone pale again. Derek, how exactly do you know about canceled accounts? Did my wife discuss our private financial arrangements with you? She's upset and confused. She needed someone to talk to. I see. And as her business partner, you felt qualified to give her advice about her marriage? As someone who cares about her, yes. Someone who cares about her. That's interesting phrasing for a business relationship. There was a pause on the line. Look, Rowan, I know this is awkward. Awkward? Derek, my wife has been lying to me for months about her relationship with you. Awkward doesn't really cover it. We never meant for it to happen this way. But it did happen. So now we're all going to deal with the consequences. What consequences? I smiled at Kira, who was watching me with growing alarm. Well, for starters, Kira's going to need to choose between her marriage and her business partnership with you. And depending on what she chooses, there might be some changes to her professional situation. You can't destroy her career because you're jealous. I'm not destroying anything, Derek. I'm just not providing free support anymore. If Kira wants to build a business with you, she'll need to do it with her own resources and her own connections. This is insane. You're acting like a child. Actually, I'm acting like a man whose wife has been cheating on him. But here's what's going to happen next. Kira's going to make a choice, tonight, And tomorrow, we're all going to start living with the consequences of that choice. I hung up the phone and looked at my wife. So, I said, what's it going to be? Kira sat at our kitchen table for 20 minutes without saying a word. I cleaned up the dinner I'd never finished cooking and loaded the dishwasher, giving her time to think through her options. Finally, she looked up at me. If I choose you, what happens to Derek? That's between you and Derek. I don't really care what happens to him. But you'll stop interfering with my work? I'll stop providing free services to your company, but I won't actively sabotage your business relationships, as long as they don't involve Derek. What does that mean? It means you can't have both, Kira. You can't be married to me and business partners with the man you've been having an affair with. Choose one. She was quiet for another few minutes. And if I choose Derek, then you'll need to find a new place to live, establish your own accounts and credit, and build a career that doesn't depend on my support. We'll get divorced, split our assets according to state law, and move on with our separate lives. The house is in my name. I bought it before we got married. My car is financed through my credit union. You'd need to refinance it or find your own transportation. The business contacts, the client relationships, were built through my technical support and consulting work. You'd need to develop your own professional network. She put her head in her hands again. You're asking me to give up everything I've worked for. No, I'm asking you to choose what you want to work for going forward. You can work on rebuilding our marriage, or you can work on building a new life with Derek. But you can't do both. My phone buzzed with a text message. Derek, we need to meet. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Murphy's Diner. I showed the message to Kira. Looks like Derek wants to have a conversation. Don't go, please. This is between us. Actually, it's between all three of us now. Derek made it his business when he started sleeping with my wife. What are you going to do? I'm going to listen to what he has to say, and then I'm going to explain some facts about the situation that he might not be aware of. What facts? I pulled out my documentation folder and spread some of the contents across the kitchen table. Bank records, business filings, surveillance photos, email confirmations. Facts about his business practices, facts about his previous marriage, facts about how much your career has depended on my support. I tapped one of the business documents. Did you know Derek's been taking a 20% commission on every client contract you've negotiated? Money that's been coming out of your company's profits? Her eyes widened. That's not... He said he was just facilitating introductions. He's been facilitating introductions and taking a cut of every deal. Your boss probably doesn't know about the arrangement, does he? We handled those payments as consulting fees. Consulting fees that you authorized without telling your boss about Derek's commission structure. How do you think Tom Morrison would react if he knew about that? She stared at the document spread across the table. You're going to destroy both of us. I'm going to have a conversation with Derek tomorrow. What happens after that depends on the choices both of you make. Kira stood up abruptly. I need some air. I'm going for a drive. Take your time, but remember, you need to make a choice. Tonight. She grabbed her keys and left through the garage. I heard her car start and pull out of the driveway. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Mick Patterson. Your wife just arrived at Derek's building again. You want me to follow them if they leave? No, that's okay. I know where this is going. You need anything else from me on this case? Actually, yes. Can you do a deeper background check on Derek Vaughn? Financial records, business history, anything that might be interesting in a legal proceeding? How deep do you want me to go? Deep enough to understand what kind of man my wife is thinking about leaving me for. I'll have something for you by tomorrow morning. I spent the evening organizing my documentation and researching divorce law in our state. Adultery was grounds for fault-based divorce, which could affect property division and alimony. The surveillance photos and financial records would be useful evidence. More importantly, I wanted to understand what Kira would be entitled to if we divorced. The house was mine, purchased before our marriage. My business assets were separate. Our joint accounts were minimal. Most of our shared expenses had been handled through my accounts anyway. Kira had been living a lifestyle that was subsidized by my income and supported by my services, but she'd never bothered to build independent wealth or assets. If she left me for Derek, she'd be starting over financially. At 11 o'clock, she came home. I was reading in the living room when she walked in. "Have you made your decision?" I asked without looking up from my book. "I want to try to work things out. With us. What about Derek? I'll end it. The business partnership and the other thing." "When?" "Tomorrow. I'll tell him tomorrow." I closed my book and looked at her. "Kira, I need you to understand something. If we're going to try to rebuild this marriage, it has to be completely over with Derek. No contact, no business relationship, no friendship, nothing. I understand. And you'll need to be completely honest with me going forward. No more lies, no more secret meetings, no more deception. I will be. And you'll need to take responsibility for rebuilding the trust that you broke. That means transparency about where you go, who you talk to, what you're doing." She nodded. "What about my job? My career?" "You'll need to figure out how to succeed without Derek's business connections, and without my free technical support. If you're serious about independence, this is your chance to prove it. And you'll give me that chance? I'll give you the chance to earn back my trust and build a career based on your own abilities. But Kira, this is your only chance. If you lie to me again, if you have any contact with Derek after tomorrow, we're done. No second chances, no explanations, no negotiations." "I understand." "Good. Then I'll see you in the morning." I went upstairs to my office and called Mick back. "Change of plans," I told him. "Still want that background check on Derek, but I also want you at Murphy's Diner tomorrow morning at 10. Sit in the back, order coffee, and listen to my conversation with Derek Vaughn." "You expecting trouble?" "I'm expecting Derek to make some threats or promises that I might need documented later, just in case Kira changes her mind about her choice." "Will do. Anything else?" "Yeah. After tomorrow morning, this case is probably over. But I want you to keep an eye on Derek for a few more days. If he tries to contact Kira or cause problems for her at work, I want to know about it." "You think he'll cause trouble?" "I think he's the kind of man who doesn't like losing, and tomorrow morning, he's going to lose big." I hung up and spent another hour reviewing my documentation. Tomorrow's conversation with Derek would determine whether Kira's choice was real or whether this was just another manipulation. Either way, I was ready.